Hey guys, what's up? I got everybody here from TMI. Don't forget to write us an email at tmipodcast2018. That's tmipodcast2018 at gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. Also, check us out on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter at TMI underscore podcast 2018. Just use the numbers, don't spell it out.
Ooh, don't forget facebook.com/TMI podcast 2018.
Follow us on the Apple Podcast app. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review.
All you YouTubers out there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, TMI Podcast 2018. Look for the popcorn bucket.
That's right. Also, check us out on Spotify and the Google Play Music app for all you Android users. Follow us and subscribe everywhere. We appreciate it. We're doing it for you guys, the fans. Thank you.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Dave Odinson Warhowski, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of TMI.
Here we are.
Episode number 13.
13. Usually that's a bad number, but this is a lucky number.
Yes, hopefully that doesn't affect our technical issues here with TMI.
Please
anything
stand by.
beyond one is good for us.
Yeah. So Jeff, Mike, and
Yes,
Jim,
I'm here.
are here this
That's me.
Jeff was missing last week, and it was just Dave, Mike, and I. If you listen to the Jurassic World overview,
I did listen. It was a good episode.
Yeah. So we tried to hold down the fort without you. I think, Jeff, that was the first episode that you've missed.
That is true. True. So maybe no one missed me. Who knows?
We've got no feedback either way. So,
No.
so it's hard to gauge
Not like people
things,
are
whether or not any of us are missed.
Where's Jeff?
Yeah,
I
we
just
know
know
that
people are always disappointed when
we know that people listen, but nobody actually wants to say how we're doing. Don't be afraid. Let us know on Facebook or on iTunes.
How many popcorn buckets are we doing here?
Yeah, how many popcorn buckets are we doing? So Dave is not here this week, who is our spiritual leader. So it's up to me to record this thing again. So he's trusting me. Danielle is here though. So hi, Danielle. So Jeff missed the Jurassic World review last week.
Yes, which I'm very disappointed.
He was the first one of us last weekend to see it.
I did.
The one that did not get to talk about it was the first one to see it. So Jeff, I'd just like to get your thoughts on Jurassic World.
Let's go. I know that you guys were split right down the middle. Jim liked it. Mike, not so much. I'm going to lean a little toward Mike. I was really hyped for this, but I was disappointed. I don't know if it's just my cynicism and my old age, but I don't know. I just felt it was more of the same. Jurassic World, I loved. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I know that, Jim, you did not agree with that, but I love the fact that we saw a vibrant up and running park. You got people going to see this thing. This was Hammond's vision from the beginning. So, inevitably all hell breaks loose and, people die, but it's not just one T-Rex. It's not just one Velociraptor. It's like hundreds of them on the loose. I just felt that this was more of the same. I felt they took everything that was iconic in the first 4 episodes and just regurgitated it. So I could go scene by scene, but I won't. I just, Claire and Owen, I felt had even less chemistry than the first movie. I will say that Zia and Franklin were my favorite characters. The human cloning aspect I thought was really interesting as well. They just didn't follow through, and maybe that'll show up on the third movie. I'm not necessarily sure where they're going to go with it, but I kind of felt that bringing in Maisie really was just her sole purpose was to just, saddle her with the action of actually freeing the dying dinosaurs, thus taking that moral dilemma out of the hands of our heroes, which was, again.
Right. Yeah. That seemed to be the only thing that she was there for. That was her only purpose, other to be terrorized by the dinosaurs in her bed.
Yeah.
It was a very bizarre turn of events to have like a dinosaurs in a haunted house type situation.
Yeah, which was interesting, but again, I don't know. It was lazy writing. I really felt that they set the bar pretty high with Jurassic World, and then kind of just fell back on the old go-tos in this one. I will bring up the point, which is the whole Maisie, the Hammond-Lockwood relationship existed prior, going into Jurassic World. These two guys had created the technology. They had pioneered it, but there was a schism within their friendship. Lockwood lost his daughter and wanted to use the technology to clone his daughter. And I guess Hammond, they had a falling out. So my guess is, since we've never heard of this character before this movie, that this all takes place prior to when we're introduced to them in the original Jurassic Parks movie, which is in 1993. So if you follow the timeline between these four movies, you're talking almost 25 years between that time and this current movie. So why is she only 10 years old?
Unless less time has gone on in the movies than hasn't.
Well, you figure there's 3 years. There's 3 years that take place between Jurassic World and this one.
Right.
So, and then Jurassic World 3, and then when Jurassic Park 3, and then Jurassic World, I think there's like a 10, 12-year window.
But then you do, you have Ian Malcolm in this. So that would say that it's been as long as from Jeff Goldblum's character.
Right.
From 93 to now. And I just would like to say that it's so good to hear him say dinosaurs.
Right.
The dinosaurs.
Yeah, and I think he actually toned it down a little bit. I don't think he was quite as...
He did, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't quite as stuttery.
Like, he really dials it up in those, what are those apartment commercials that he does now?
I know, yeah.
But it's always good to see him.
Right. So anyways, that the timeline didn't really work out for me, but I don't know. Maybe it took him that long to actually perfect it. Who knows? This kid might be the 15th iteration of the clone.
True, yeah.
Before it actually took, if you want to get into,
And yeah, who knows how this works, this whole cloning thing.
Right. So, but anyways, I mean, I agree with Mike. I love the end of this movie. I thought it would, the setup is, I mean, who knows where they go from here? You now have dinosaurs loose upon the world. So where do they go with that?
Yeah, that's what carried it over the top for me. I wouldn't like to say that the ending overshadowed everything else and made me give it 3 stars, because I enjoyed it from beginning to end. It was a popcorn movie, so I didn't take it too seriously. I didn't overthink it. The effects were great as usual, as per
phenomenal
Jurassic Park movies. Yeah. The T-Rex comes to save the day again.
Again,
he's becoming the hero of the movies. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
I think the T-Rex has been in every one except for the third.
He wasn't in that one?
No.
What was in that? What was the bad guy in that one?
That was a Spinosaurus. Yes. That was a because it was a separate island.
Yeah, that was a badass. That was a badass dinosaur.
Yeah, again. So right. So we got another genetically modified dinosaur again, but the Indominus Rex is a much more superior, cool looking dinosaur.
Yes, you are correct. Yeah. It's I think they had to, with Blue, they really had to give Blue like something that he could actually fight. Like, it wouldn't have been a fair fight with Blue against
right. Rex. Yeah, no, it took the Mosasaurus to take out the Indominus Rex in the last one, which is funny because the beginning of this movie is very cool opening sequence. Although I have to laugh at the fact that somehow the Mosasaurus magically pooped out the Indominus Rex completely intact. So his bones are all right there in full skeleton, like he was in a museum.
Right, and you assume that the Mosasaurus does not regurgitate its food like a snake.
He would not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we really know how dinosaurs operate?
Yeah, and I love the fact that is loose in the oceans of the world. That
but again, they ruin that. You see those scenes in the trailer. So at the end of the movie, when they talk about, when you got Jeff Goldblum's character over talking about, how we're now in a Jurassic World, those are great visuals to see, and yet they ruin it by showing it in the trailer.
It's true. That is probably the iconic image from the trailer. Yeah. So So that was a little disappointing, actually, because I was looking forward to seeing that, and the fact that they held it back until the very end.
Right.
Like,
So again, you're waiting to see it. You're waiting to see it.
Like what Mike was saying last week. That's when that movie begins. Is at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to wait till next time to see more of these dinosaurs, as Jeff Goldblum would say.
Yeah. So right. So the only thing I'll say, which is they've done a fair amount of, they've gone out of their way to basically bring back every major character from the original Jurassic Park over the course of these last.
I'd like to say,
P.D. Wong, numerous, I think he's got more screen time now than Sam Neill.
I don't know. Do you watch Mr. Robot? Because he's in drag. So it's very difficult for me to watch him now, and he's not in drag. It's like, okay, he's
he's in drag on that. Well, I will tell you, because he also plays a major character on Gotham.
Really? Okay, yeah. I haven't watched past season one.
Yeah, no. So he's all over the place. But so my only thought is, why have we not seen a grown-up Timmy and Lex from the original movie? This is Hammond's grandchildren, who he specifically brought in to view the park, because this is who the target audience was. I mean, these kids at that age, this has got to be traumatic for them to watch people be consumed by dinosaurs and chased by dinosaurs. So now 20 plus years later, they got to be grown up. You got Timmy, who is a dinosaur aficionado, who may or may not be anymore, and his sister Lex, who was like a computer whiz. So bring them back in. Bring them back in.
Use different actors. You don't have to use the same.
You might. I mean, who knows? Bring them. Yeah. I would love to see these kids.
So Mr. Spielberg, if you're listening to this, that's an idea for you. Yeah,
let them either try to reclaim their grandfather's legacy, or shut it down, depending on where they fall on which side of the spectrum. Yeah, but I would love to see those.
Claire Dearing, has needs some backup, so she's got to call Joey Mazzello.
Yeah, and you know what? I will just say this: every time Chris Pratt was on screen, I wanted to punch him in the face. not because I didn't like his character, but I still can't forgive him for Infinity Wars.
You see, I don't think he's right as Owen. I think he's miscast here.
I liked him better in the first one. I really did.
So?
They had no chemistry in this movie whatsoever.
Because I think this is not really a movie where he's got to have the occasional the occasional
quippy joke,
joke,
right?
But it's not like a Star-Lord where he's doing that throughout, and that's the tone of that movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. But that's not really the tone of a Jurassic Park. So
no.
And he's not really a good straight guy. He needs those quips throughout. So he doesn't, and I'm sorry to say this, but he doesn't really rise to the dramatic scenes that well. Please no hate.
He just unfriended us on Instagram. Great. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I was very disappointed by it. So I give it 2 popcorn buckets.
2 popcorn buckets.
Two. That's it.
Fair assessment.
But with the intention that maybe the third. So what is this? Is this like our Matrix Reloaded? It wasn't that great of a movie, but going into Matrix Revolution, it could be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we all know how that ended.
Yes, we all do.
Not so well.
But we'll see.
Colin.
It has the potential. They've set up something very interesting.
Yeah, so we'll maybe was Colin. What's the director? Colin Trevorrow. Trevorrow, who actually I think wrote and directed the first one, but he was only executive producer on this one. So my guess is, and he's got control over the third one as well. Maybe he had a beautiful beginning game and an end game, but he just didn't know how to bridge the 3 movies. This is what happens when you have a trilogy.
Yeah.
So we're riding high on the fact that he can finish this strong.
So 2 popcorn buckets.
2.
Yeah. All right. So our main feature this week, because it's a slow movie week for us in terms of theatrical films. So we decided to take a look at something that's been released recently, streaming, DVD, Blu-ray, and it's been reviewed very well recently.
Perhaps a little too well.
Perhaps. We'll see. But this is Annihilation, starring Natalie Portman.
Oh, and let's not forget Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, who is gaining celebrity in the sci-fi annals with this Poe Dameron, and now this. So.
Well, and we got Queen Amidala, so we got a huge Star Wars tie-in right there.
Yes, we do. So just to give a little background of what's going on in Annihilation. So the film picks up with a meteor coming down to Earth, hits in what we later learn is Florida, right on the coast, on the ocean, and either strikes or comes very close to striking a lighthouse. And this meteor creates a bubble, a dome, if you will, what they call the shimmer, which is kind of a massive undulating
oily,
oily prisms,
multicolored oily bubble.
Yes. So this shimmer, this dome, is growing, and the government does not like this because anybody that they send into it to see what is happening inside does not come out. All their teams that they've sent in have disappeared and have never been heard from again. So we open the movie with Natalie Portman's character as a teacher of biology. So she is a biologist. And her husband has been on a secret mission with the government. He's in the military for the past year. He's been assumed dead. She thinks he's dead. And he mysteriously shows up at the beginning of the movie at her doorstep. And after being there for a few hours with her, she's trying to figure out where he's been. He doesn't remember. He doesn't know where he's been or why he's been missing.
How convenient.
Yeah.
He was in Vegas.
Yeah, he starts to hemorrhage. He collapses. So she calls the ambulance. They're taking him to the hospital. The government intervenes, as they always do.
As they always do.
She's just trying to take her husband to the hospital to save his life. They cut the ambulance off. Who knows what happens to the ambulance drivers? You don't know.
No. That is
they
true.
could be dead, yeah.
Right.
So they take her to the secret facility and him just outside the shimmer. They explain to her that it's growing. They're going to send in another team, this time all women. They've only sent in men thus far. A group of 5 women into the shimmer to see if they can make it to the lighthouse, which they believe is the source of the dome. So that's the setup of the movie. And they go into the shimmer and they realize that after a while of being in it, they see that this is what it's doing is it's refracting, it's mixing, it's messing with the DNA of the people, of the living things that are in the shimmer. So it's
right,
kind of,
plants, animal.
So it's kind of a reflection, if you will, and a mixture at the same time of DNA. So
it's like a petri dish.
Yes, it's like exactly. It's like an alien petri dish.
Nice. We've answered it. That's it.
Yeah. And so the characters that go into besides Natalie Portman, because she's a biologist and she's got something personal to discover here, that she's an obvious choice to go in. We've also got a character played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, Dr. Ventress. She's the head of the expedition. We've got a character named Raddick, played by Tessa Thompson, who is what is her profession? Did you catch that?
Tessa Raddick.
She's some kind of scientist.
Yeah, they were all different.
We've got a gruff talking paramedic that was very reminiscent of the character in Aliens, the female Marine. And so they go into the shimmer to see what's going on. So this is the group that goes in hoping to come out again. And my first question here is, when I was watching them go in, it's like, just step out for a second. You know everybody else has gone in and has not come out. Step in, step out. Just see if you can get out, and then I would feel more comfortable progressing if I knew I had an exit.
It's like a hokey pokey.
Yeah, or at least tie a rope around one of them and just let's go.
Right.
So if they run into trouble, they just pull them out. Yeah. So as they go into the shimmer, you're seeing mutated creatures like a giant alligator, a giant bear. The bear attacks one of the characters, kills her, unfortunately, and then the bear comes back to attack the rest, but is screaming the cries of anguish from the female character. So it's which was
very disconcerting.
Yes. So and it reminded me of this movie called Prophecy. I don't know.
Oh my God, love that movie. Yes, the mutated bear from the
mutated bear. Yeah.
Yes, the bear, the family in the sleeping bags.
Right.
And he comes in and just. Yeah. Oh my God. Such an underrated.
So yeah, and the bear in this movie has almost like a human skull looking.
Yeah, it's like his whole front end, all the fur and everything's been worn off.
Yeah. So and you also see in the midst of all this the petri dish action, you see some instances of things being duplicated. Like there's a scene that shows a mutated deer that has an exact twin that are moving in the same formation. Then you've got the whole Oscar Isaac character, who you later find out has been killed, but the shimmer has created a clone. So the character you see in the beginning is not actually Oscar Isaac. Well, it is Oscar Isaac, but not not Natalie Portman's husband.
But you knew that though, because when he left, he had curly hair, and when he came back, it was slicked back. You knew that he was like, that's not him. Right?
He's a weasel now. He's got
there you go.
back hair.
He didn't really talk much either.
So Jeff, you have some interesting ideas about the shimmer and its relationship to a certain malignancy growing.
Well, right. So they bring up this whole, I mean, this theme, the first time you actually see Lena, who is Natalie Portman's character. She's a biologist, and she's in a classroom, and she's talking about, they're watching these cells reproduce, and they're talking about, it's metastasizing cancer within a patient. And, they're going to study this cancer. And it's been brought up a couple times throughout. There's a point where she's looking at these plants that are mutating, and she even makes a point, if I look at this under a microscope, I'm going to see cancer reproducing cells. Ventress, who is the Jennifer Jason Leigh character, you find out eventually that the reason she volunteered for this is that she's dying of cancer, and she has it's basically a one-way trip. So she's going in willingly. So, right. So is this thing really just kind of a cancer cell on our planet that's expanding, trying to take over? It's replicating, it's mutating things within it. So that seemed to be a theme that was carried through numerous times. They brought this up. Same thing with even the idea of that people are self-destructive. They kept bringing this up, whether you're drinking, you're into drugs, or you're suicidal, that there's an overlaying story structure with this thing. So you never really know. Is it malicious? Is it malignant? Is it just an alien symbiote that happened to land here and it's just assimilating? Is it looking to change things for the better, or just adapting? So you never really get that answer.
Watching some of the bonus features, because I needed them in order to kind of get through this after the viewing experience, I found out that there was a scene written for the very, very end that shows more meteors coming down. So,
interesting.
But again, you don't know if it's just a natural phenomenon. Is this some kind of attack or what have you? Because,
well,
a cancer could be seen as an attack on the human body. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't take it away that it was malicious in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we've had meteorites fall on this planet for billions of years. You go back far enough and they say that, all life basically began from a meteor, coming down here and whatever. So is it just is it a bioorganism? Is it intelligent? Is it just, it could just be some organism that's trying to adapt to live and survive.
Right. And I was very confused about what its function was, to mix or to duplicate, because it seemed to have very separate agendas in terms of mixing DNA and then duplicating DNA, because at the very end you see a perfect replica of Oscar Isaac's character.
Right. Clothes and all, by the way.
Yeah, and he doesn't have plants growing out of him or anything else like that. So he's not mixed with anything else. Anything else is DNA. And it does the same thing to Natalie Portman, or it tries to anyway. And she escapes, or does she?
Well, that's left open-ended there.
So I think that it didn't really give enough information what the purpose, if there was any purpose, as we were talking about it. Maybe this is just a natural phenomenon, and this is what it does.
Right. In
some cases, it duplicates a living organism, and in some cases, it matches.
Well, maybe the higher ranking organisms, brain facility, capacity and all that, as opposed to the dumber animals that. Yeah. Right. I felt at the end it was very 2001 Space Odyssey kind of crap going on, because you're like, what the hell am I watching? Again, 3/4 of this movie I was completely invested in it, and then when they got to the lighthouse, it kind of lost me a little bit. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. So
now you see, I really enjoyed being in the dark. It was very visually arresting to me.
Yes,
the shimmer
agreed.
Effect was, I thought, a great achievement that they pulled off. And it was always in the background as well, which I loved. They never forgot about it.
Right.
The creature effects were phenomenal. The alligator, the alligator attack and the bear attack.
Yep.
And the acting I think was first rate.
I agree. Although I kept feeling that Ventress was Stifler's mom, and it wasn't. It was Jennifer Jason Leigh. I'm just like, man, she did not age well. Yeah. But then again, when's the last time you saw her on anything?
Now, Jennifer Jason Leigh playing as Dr. Ventress. She's got to have the worst bedside manner of any doctor that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And she has reason because she does have a terminal illness, but still, she just was so disinterested and cutting to everybody else in the theater. Like, I would not want her as my doctor.
No. Yeah.
And I have to give a shout out to Tessa Thompson.
Yes, absolutely.
As the character of Raddick, because she kind of just walks off and
Josie was her first name, Josie Raddick?
Perhaps, yeah. And she has plants growing on her as she walks off and accepts her fate and becomes assimilated or refracted. And you never
saw her demise or her end game.
Right.
She just kind of like walked away. But yeah, that's Valkyrie.
Houseplant.
That was Valkyrie from...
Yeah, Valkyrie and what is her name on Westworld? She's like the head bad guy on Westworld.
Oh, I never made
that
connection.
From the Delos Corporation.
I never made that connection.
You never did?
I know who you're talking about. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
So she's just, all of a sudden, she's everywhere in all of our favorite pop culture stuff.
Good for her, man.
Tessa Thompson.
She's like the forget him.
And I also want to shout out that Oscar Wilde's character's name was Kane. Was that a reference to Alien, perhaps?
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde. He's an actor.
Well, Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray, another refraction.
There you go, refraction indeed.
There you go.
Nice.
So you know what? I just wanted to bring this up because it made me think. Now, actually, before I get into this, let's do our popcorn bucket. So I just started to say that I enjoyed it, and I did. I didn't get everything that was going on until I did some Cliff Notes after the movie. I looked it up online. I would give, just for the challenge that it gave me and the special effects and the acting, I would give it a 3 popcorn bucket review. I hand it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to go. I don't even want any popcorn with this movie because I wish I never saw it. It was... If anyone's listening out there, do not watch this movie. And in fact, I gave it to David Danielle with instructions not to watch the movie. Just send
Is that why they backed out?
And I said,
now, go ahead. Wait. Let's ask Danielle. Danielle, did you watch it? That's what I thought.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it is.
Yeah, point your words.
The fact that they set it up for a sequel just made my skin crawl.
Oh, you think that whole end was set up as a sequel? I felt it was kind of like the closing minutes of Michael Jackson's Thriller video, where you turn around and you just see the throbbing colors in her eyes, and you're like, oh my God, they're both clones. But I don't necessarily believe that she was a clone, but whatever. It was pretty obvious that he was.
I'm hopeful it's the end. I mean, if you judge this as against like a rival or Contact, it just does not hold up.
No, and you know what? That's funny that you mentioned both those movies because I felt the same way. Again, you're emotionally invested. 3/4 of I was in because you're in the dark as much as these characters. You don't know what they're going to come across. They don't. They all have ulterior motives. There was a lot of background, little throwing in about the destructiveness of ourselves and what we do to our people. And you see in flashbacks that these people are not necessarily who you think they are, or not as pure as you think they are. But I was in 3/4 of the movie. I think the end just kind of ruined it for me. So I give it 3. I'm right there with Jim.
Give it 3.
I think it was a valiant effort. And from what I understand, this is based on a trilogy of books. So by all means, Mike, there is a sequel somewhere in there. But I don't know. Jim, do we have numbers?
No, this is not a classic feature, so I did not look up the box office numbers of this thing.
Excuse me, sorry. I will say
no. I have to say this to the listeners: don't watch this movie.
See, I say watch it and make your own opinion.
Now, you see, with me, even a bad movie, it's still the movie-going experience. So it's better than a stick in the eye.
Right, there you go. Well, nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
No,
is my theory. And the fact that it has a 93% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes means that other people got it. I didn't. Or I just not willing to embrace it as greatly.
So I would, I will go as far as to say that maybe it did not deserve the critical lauding that it did get, but so maybe it's not a modern classic as we've been led to believe before we actually viewed it ourselves. But it is, a worthy Friday, Saturday movie, unless you're Mike. And then
there you go.
It's not even a Monday.
Worst movie ever. Wow, that's right up there
it's
with
just
Close
bad.
Encounters review by the Warhowskis.
By the Warhowskis.
So I will follow Mike and say watch either one of those two movies he just mentioned, which is Contact and Arrival. Either one, although I'll choose Contact over Arrival any day.
So would I.
Contact is one of my all-time favorite movies. And
also, if you want a flavor of this, what's going on in this movie that's much more suspense and horror oriented, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I think, is a very
the original.
Yeah, that is
the original or the '78 Donald Sutherland remake. I think there's a lot of direct lines between that and this as well, with the duplications going on.
And you know what? That's a good call out. I agree.
Yeah. Way to go, Jim.
Thank you.
Nice. All right, so there you go. We were all annihilated.
All right, now I smell some popcorn.
There's extra butter.
This can only be a classic feature.
Ooh, we got a classic today too.
Anybody that listened last week will know that this is 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, Danielle, you hated Close Encounters. You cannot deny this Steven Spielberg classic.
She had to have loved this.
She had to. Danielle, what did you and Dave think?
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough. I think we have a theme.
So Raiders.
Yes.
Now this grew from our confessional question last week. What is your favorite Steven Spielberg movie? Mike and I shared this as our favorite, and so it just seemed like a natural fit to discuss this week.
Well, they also just announced, I think, that they're backing up production on the fifth one. They announced a month or so ago that the fifth one was up and running, and now it seems that it's kind of getting shoved back a little bit. So we may get a Harrison Ford in his early 80s. That'd be great.
Now, the last film, the Crystal Skull, it was Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Yep, Indiana Jones.
That was almost kind of giving the impression that it was a passing of the torch, and I'm so glad.
Thankfully, well, I think better
did not
heads
end
prevailed.
up that way.
Better heads prevailed. Once they saw him swinging with the monkeys, Shia LaBeouf, like, we can't do this.
Yeah, and I don't think that would have been embraced by anyone.
No, I'd rather watch the young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Yeah.
Which was good.
They were good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Although it's just amazing how he ran into a historical figure every week. It's like Quantum Leap.
Is that on Netflix or anything?
It's a good question. I just remember the one episode where Harrison Ford actually showed up as like a 60-year-old Indiana Jones sitting on the porch retelling a story.
Is really?
Yeah, he was in one of the episodes.
He was. Okay, yeah.
And I actually met years ago up in Fishkill, your neck of the woods there, Jim. There was a comic convention, and the gentleman who played old Indiana Jones, he was like 80-something years old with an eye patch, and he was there, and I actually got his art. What has he done since? No.
So let's get into this.
Yes. Do we need to even break down the story? Because I think at this point, if there's anybody listening who does not know Indiana Jones, maybe you should give it up.
Yeah. We do not need to go there.
Right, correct.
What I would like to do is just set the scene of like the release date of.
Okay, go ahead. Let's go. Let's go back to 1981 because
let's get into it.
So 1981, and we are still deep within the blockbuster era of films, because we had Star Wars in '77, which kind of ushered in the blockbuster coming out every year. Maybe you could even go further back than that to Jaws. And then Jaws, you had 76. I think you had King Kong, which was a big one.
Yeah.
And that kind of really got overshadowed by Star Wars because I think they came out within 6 months of each other. But Star Wars, and then you had Superman, 78 was the big one of that year. Alien was in 79, even though that would have been bigger if it wasn't an R-rated movie. But still, it was a very big release. 1980, of course, Empire Strikes Back. Then you had Superman 2 in 1980 as well. And so the summer of 1981 gave us Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, this was a big year for Oscar bait. So this was Chariots of Fire. let's see, what else was 81? Was Officer and a Gentleman 81? No, that was 82.
82, yeah.
Yeah, that was 82. But 81 was a very, I think, esoteric year for movies. And so Raiders was kind of like the one big shining popcorn bucket movie that was out that year, because you didn't have a Star Wars. You did have For Your Eyes Only, so you did have a James Bond that summer. But Raiders was kind of far and away the box office blast that everybody wanted to see. And going to see it myself, my father took me opening night, I remember. And because Indiana Jones was not a proven character, Harrison Ford was, of course, Han Solo. So I went invested in Harrison Ford, but I knew nothing about this movie. I thought maybe it was a World War II, maybe it was kind of boring, but my father seemed very psyched to see it. George Lucas's name was attached to it. I wasn't really that much aware of Spielberg at the time, because maybe his cachet as a director didn't really begin with kids our age until Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
More seasoned moviegoers knew him from Close Encounters and Jaws, obviously. But at the time, I think his last movie was 1941, which was a bomb. So he was really
trying to you liked it.
It was a bomb at the box office, though, which I think was very unfairly an unfair status given to it. But I think at the time he was really trying to get another hit, and this provided that in spades. And I just remember being totally blown away in the theater, and I'd never. And this is not just like blowing smoke up Spielberg's rear end, but I've never been with such an invested audience as I was in that showing of Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I think the entire audience was maybe surprised by it.
Yeah.
Laughing, applauding throughout the movie. And that scene where Harrison Ford as Indiana, where the sword master comes out of the marketplace and does his whole sword display, and Indy just shoots him. The crowd that I saw was laughing for a good solid 5 minutes after that scene was over. And I couldn't hear what was happening in the movie when Marion is being kidnapped, because the audience was still laughing over the sword shot.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And the other big scene that sticks with me is the truck fight where Indiana Jones takes control of the truck. He gets thrown out, then he comes down through the bottom and backs. The whole thing was just an amazing ride.
I don't think there's a single scene in this movie that's not iconic from beginning to end.
True.
So, all right, Mike, go. Theater experience.
From the beginning where, he's kind of being chased by this boulder after catching the golden head and stuff like that. I mean, you're right, Jeff. There's just so many iconic scenes. But the one that sticks with me the most is, the end. Where they're in the warehouse and they're storing the Lost Ark of the Covenant, and you're just what is going on? That is just insane that there's all these relics over there.
I saw this. I didn't have a lot of theater experience. I did see this in the same theater I saw Robin Hood and Star Wars in, and then I probably didn't see another movie in the theater until my college years, because after that it was all drive-in stuff. But my friend Kevin Ladd, he lived in town in Corning, and my brother and I used to go and visit my grandfather, and Kevin had seen this probably numerous times. So it was well into the summer. It wasn't opening night. I probably don't even know if I was aware of this movie, and he dragged us. He begged us. We needed to go see this movie. And we went to an afternoon matinee, and apparently he had told my brother everything about this movie going in, because that scene that Jim just brought up where they're in the marketplace and the swordsman, is just wielding a giant scepter or whatever. And my brother screams out, "Watch this!" He shoots him. And it ruins the whole scene for the entire theater. So I'll never forget that. But this movie left such an indelible impression on me. I mean, right up there with Star Wars. It was a movie that, again, you're mesmerized from beginning to end. It's nonstop action, phenomenal. I mean, we can talk about details. We can talk about in the 1990, I went to Hawaii and I did a helicopter tour, and they take you through Nepali coast, which is in Kauai, where they filmed the opening sequence. And so you're flying down, tree line level, going through, you got your headphones on, and the guy's just pumping out the Indiana Jones music. And it was just, it was everything this nerd kid had ever cared about. It didn't matter that I couldn't see the ground or the fact that maybe they filmed five miles away from where I was. It was the fact that I was within proximity to where they filmed that. And, unbeknownst to me, they were probably down there filming Jurassic Park at the time. So, but that stuff, and like what Mike said, that opening sequence, that opening sequence, there's like not even a line of dialogue. Maybe Indiana Jones says like one or two things, but it gives you everything you need to know about this character in that first 10 minutes. Yeah, and it's so iconic. And we got a Dr. Octopus because that was Alfred Molina. That was Sapito.
Yeah, the Marvel, the MCU connection. Yeah.
Yes.
And we have to give recognition to that opening shot where the mountain blends in with the Paramount.
Oh yeah, I guess Spielberg went out of his way to try to
match that. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And the I think that whole opening sequence inspired Pitfall, the infamous Activision game.
Was that prior though? Oh,
the rope swing across.
Yeah. The alligators. Oh, we had that. Yeah. Oh, I used to play that nonstop.
Yeah, I think that was.
Well, there was. I mean, just like Star Wars. Once this movie came out, there were so many like blatant ripoffs. Do you remember? Like, I couldn't wait till it probably was like a year later in the fall, the TV show Tales of the Gold Monkey.
Yes,
which was
Stephen Collins.
Yeah, did he have an eye patch?
He did not have an eye patch.
He did not have an eye patch. I think the monkey had an eye patch. I don't remember. But yeah, it was just everyone was just jumping on board. And again, this was all stuff that Lucas grew up with. This was like a throwback to like the 1940s serials, the cliffhangers. That's why when you see this movie, you're kind of seeing the end adventure of something that you never saw the setup. All you're seeing is the end result of him going into the temple and retrieving the prize. So it was built just like those old school serials where, you go and you get a half an hour and every episode literally ended on a cliffhanger. How will our hero survive? Come back next week. And that's what he built off. And so go back to the Hawaii connection, which is Lucas and Spielberg were on vacation. It was the opening weekend of Star Wars. And Lucas wanted to be nowhere within the contiguous United States because he knew it was going to bomb. And so him and Spielberg went on vacation, and they were hanging out on the beach in Hawaii. And Spielberg was talking about the fact that he wanted James Bond. He wanted to get the James Bond license. And George Lucas is like, I got something better. Indiana Smith. And he tells him this whole story. Eventually, thankfully, they did decide that Smith was not the best last name, and they changed it to Jones. But he basically laid the groundwork for Spielberg right then and there. And then Spielberg's like, all right, I'm on board.
Yeah, I do remember reading that Spielberg expressed interest in directing a James Bond movie.
Yep.
At the time.
Well, it's a great movie with probably the best ending ever.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you can't. Right? Because again, it's like all the work the hero goes into this to actually retrieve, to get this out of the hands of the Nazis, just to fall into the hands of the U.S. government, which may or may not be just as bad as putting it in their hands.
Right.
But if you remember, the Ark did not like the Nazi symbol.
It did not.
No. It burned that Nazi symbol right off the box that it was in.
So let me bring that up because I've seen this movie numerous times. I didn't bother watching it for this because I know I can talk through it, but I did just before it was online and I was looking at because there's a lot of Star Wars connections within this movie itself. And supposedly, and I got to go back and look at this, in The Empire Strikes Back, when Chewie goes into the smelting room to retrieve the parts of 3PO in Cloud City, supposedly in the background is the burnt box from Raiders, the Nazi logo on it. See, I said the same thing. How many times have you seen that movie? I've never seen that.
Right.
I've never picked that. You see IG-88's head. That may or may not be him, but I don't remember that, and I need to verify that one way or the other.
Jeff, get on that, and we'll cover that in the next episode.
I would like to bring up some other actors here that are in this movie. Jonathan Rhys Davies, who was also Gimli in The Lord of the Rings.
Wasps, very, very dangerous.
Playing Sala. And my favorite line that he gives in this movie, bad dates.
When the monkey, the poor monkey.
Yeah, so when he catches the date right before Indiana, he tosses it in the air and eats it. Yeah, and the poor monkey that gives the monkey that gives the Hail Hitler sign.
I will tell you that according to that was a second unit of filming. and it took them like 2 weeks to get that damn monkey to act Nazi salute. They ended up like dangling dates or something above him in order to get him to raise his hand. So he was not affiliated with the Nazi regime.
But you know, a good actor. You would think that he was. I was convinced. I was convinced that the little damn monkey was a Nazi. And also, speaking of the Nazis in the movie, Ronald Lacey as the Man in Black, Toht, I think his name is, T-O-H.
Yep, T-O-H-T.
Who screams like no other actor, I think.
Oh, and your face melts, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing, when he grabs the staff, you know, the head staff of Ra, when he screams and, you know, puts his... But you would notice whenever his hat comes off, you could see his head is obviously shaved around.
Right, correct. Yep.
Hey.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like a very bozo-ish kind of. And I don't know,
that was just a stylish.
If you could pick that up in the theaters back then, but you know, on high res, you know, on high definition TV, you can definitely see. Yeah. What else do I have here that I would like to bring up with? Speaking of other actors in this, we've got a Flash Gordon connection. 2 Flash Gordon connections. We've got Mr. Katanga, who is the ship captain.
The ship captain.
Who harbors Indy and Marion with the Ark when the Ark, you know, burns the Nazi symbol off.
Right.
That is the same guy from the courtroom scene of Flash Gordon that tries to kill Ming the Merciless.
He was the king. He was the prince.
The one that tries to, you know.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I'd like to give my loyalty to Ming. And then he gets zapped.
He should have been about 5 feet closer, though.
Yeah, as we discussed, and also. Another character we discussed a couple of weeks ago, Munson from Flash Gordon.
What?
Dr.
Really?
Zarkov's assistant is one of the guys that comes, one of the FBI guys.
End of the movie.
Earlier when they go to visit Indy at his school to talk him into this mission.
Yes, they're sitting. That's when they first started talking about the Ark and break out the book.
Yeah.
Oh, did not make that connection. Interesting.
So yeah, those two Flash Gordon connections are in this film.
Well, you also know that the pilot that was on the flying wing that Marion knocks out with the wheel blocks, and then there's a big fight scene with Indy and the bald mechanic there.
Yes.
That is Frank Marshall. He is actually the producer of this movie.
Yes, he's in the cockpit, Frank Marshall.
Yes, correct. Yeah, he was the pilot. Yeah.
And I also read, because I read that in researching this, and I also read that the guy that Indy, the big mechanic guy that he fights that ends up getting chopped up in the propellers, is also somebody he fights in the bar scene with Marion earlier.
Oh, repurposed him, huh?
One of the thugs that comes in with.
I'll have to check him. Maybe they shaved his head as well.
Maybe they did.
So, yeah.
And you know what's funny is that Munson's character in Raiders of the Lost Ark his name is Major Eaton, which I wonder is a play on his weight.
Well, that's right up there with Porkins. Lieutenant Porkins. Come on.
This poor guy.
That guy you got to call Porkins?
Yeah.
Bad. That's
so
just not nice.
So obviously, you know it by now that you're going to get some stats on the classic feature. So Raiders cost $18 million to make.
Which is ridiculous.
Which is peanuts, I think. But back then, a lot of studios didn't want it because they thought it cost too much. The budget of $20 million was too much for them to take on with Spielberg's track record from 1941. Obviously, it did gangbusters. It ended up making, through its various re-releases, $389 million. So it is one of the highest grossing films of all time. I think it's still in the top 25.
Well, this movie just stands the test of time. You can watch it now and you don't know, was it made yesterday? Was it made in 1981? There's really nothing in there, even special effects wise, that you can point out and be like, oh boy, if they could only go back and redo that. I think everything in this movie is absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And as Mike's like the climax to the movie before the reveal in the warehouse where the Ark is opened and all the spirits come out, and then that one looks like an angel, then turns, morphs into a skeleton. Those effects were just so perfect.
Well, even the melting of the Nazis. I mean, that's pure perfection. That's right in every little 12-year-old boy's alley.
And this is a very violent film for its
people. It really is. Yeah. So,
and also just one more thing before we move on, I
got a couple points out.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
The canyon scene where
Indy... Oh, you're going to jump on that. Okay.
where Indy threatens to bazooka the Ark,
Yep.
you know, and you know that he's never going to do it. They know that he's never going to do
Right.
it. So
Yeah. Go ahead, Jones.
Yeah.
Blow
I don't
it
know
back
what his
to
ploy
King.
was. That is the same canyon in Tunisia
Yes, correct.
that R2-D2 is kidnapped by the Jawas.
Correct. It's actually known as Star Wars Canyon.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was my saved round. So
Yeah. I will give you one more. There's one more Star Wars. Well, there's two, actually. So the opening sequence, when Indy's outrunning the Jovitos when they're shooting their arrows at him, and is it Jacques? Jacques is in the airplane.
Yeah.
And he's waiting for him. Fire up the engines. Fire up the engines. The plane's call symbol, OBCPO, which is go to the second one, Temple of Doom, and they actually go to Club Obi-Wan, which is a little more obvious.
Yes,
But
yes.
So you got OBCPO, and if you watch very carefully, so again, like you said, now that these movies have been put back out years ago on DVD and they've been remastered and cleaned up, you're seeing things that you wouldn't normally see. There was always that when he first falls into the Well of Souls and he's faced, on the ground, face to face with that cobra, it always drove me nuts because you could see the reflection of the cobra in the glass that was separating them.
Yes.
But that's now gone. But there's another scene when him and Salah are in the well and they're actually lifting the Ark up and out over Indy's left shoulder, well, right shoulder, actually. There are hieroglyphs running down the pillars. And you have an R2-D2 and C-3PO cameo.
Yes, I didn't even think of that for this discussion, but I remember seeing a freeze frame of that at some point in time.
I've actually freezed it and sent it to my niece because she's really big now. My sister has done a great job of educating my niece and nephews on all these classic movies. So I'm constantly giving these movies to them, and I'm like, no, you need to watch this next. You need to watch this. So they loved Tomb Raider. And so my sister made a mention of, she's just like a female Indiana Jones. Who is that? Oh, Uncle Fail. An Uncle Fail right there. So I said, you're going to take this box, you're going to take it home, and you're going to watch it. And so sure enough, my niece goes, look, I found it. I saw exactly what you pointed out. So she sent me a screen grab back, which was great. The only other thing I was mentioning, which is, so Harrison Ford was not hired for this movie. George Lucas did not want him a part of this because he was already Han Solo, and they wanted Tom Selleck. CBS would not let him out of his contract. Harrison Ford did not come into this until 2 weeks before principal photography started, which I find absolutely amazing that you can walk into this character and just kind of imbue it with your own. But do you know that Salah, who the original actor was hired for Salah?
No, who?
No.
Which would have made this movie completely different. Danny DeVito. Right? Yeah, which is crazy. Which is funny. We were just watching Friends earlier, and there's an episode where Phoebe's getting married, and they have a bachelorette party for her, and Danny DeVito's the stripper. I'm just like, oh my god.
How would Danny DeVito be able to catch that date out of it?
Right.
Bad date.
What do you just fake the? But what's funny, which is they brought him in later for Romancing the Stone, which is really an Indiana Jones kind of ripoff.
Yes, it is.
Listen, don't get me wrong. I love Romancing the Stone, but Danny DeVito as this character, I don't necessarily would have bought. So that's interesting. The only other Star Wars connection I'll make, which is that George Lucas's dog was the inspiration for Chewbacca. And do you know what his name was?
What was it?
Indiana.
Indiana?
So there you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this movie is, again, iconic. It's absolutely iconic. It's been, if you watch Big Bang Theory, there's a whole episode devoted to them waiting in line for hours because the movie is being re-released and there's 12 extra seconds of movie, that have not been previously seen. And they're like all super psyched to see it. So, yeah.
So Raiders, 95% certified fresh.
95.
Not a surprise.
No. But it's only 2 higher than Annihilation.
Exactly.
I feel that is a slight.
And also number 66 on the AFI, the American Film Institute's their list of all-time greats.
66? What's 65?
Right.
It used to be 60 back, I think, 10 years ago. Then they reassessed, and now it's 60.
Please don't tell me Avatar jumped it.
But what's funny is just really quickly is that scene with the swordsman where Indy shoots him. The reason that they did that, they were going to choreograph a whole fight.
Fight sequence. Yeah.
But Harrison Ford had dysentery.
I think outside of Steven Spielberg, the entire cast and crew had dysentery.
So apparently, when you see Harrison Ford, shoot him and then they cut, like he goes right to the bathroom. I think.
Yeah, it was. I think that was right. That was like an ad lib on his part, which is why can't we just shoot this guy? But you're right. That is the pinnacle, and that's that's the moment where you're like, all right, this guy means business.
So with Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, as in our classic feature, we wanted to honor him with our confessional questions.
Confessionals.
And the confessional is, what is your favorite Harrison Ford character? Now, we didn't exclude Han Solo and Indiana Jones from this. So, those two characters are open for the taking here if you would like to. And they've loomed very large over the rest of Harrison Ford's assembly of characters. Yeah. I have to, when going through and looking back at all the characters, there are none as iconic as Han Solo and Indiana Jones.
Maybe Deckard?
Maybe Deckard. Maybe Jack Ryan.
But so many other. But you know what? So many other people have played Jack Ryan.
Yeah, he didn't really take that as his own. Like
correct, right?
And then he was out.
Air Force One, maybe.
Airport, get off my plane.
It was right.
How about The Fugitive?
The Fugitive, yes. The Fugitive,
Dr. Richard Kimball, which is that's high up there.
Regarding Henry, anyone?
He was a jerk, though, right? I mean, it's a good thing he got amnesia because
Witness.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
always like a good Amish movie.
But you know what? It was really overlooked is his performance in American Graffiti.
Wait.
I'll bring it up as we speak.
Go ahead. I'm drawing a blank, but I sure know it.
Knowing that Harrison Ford is in American Graffiti, knowing him from Star Wars, like if you're watching American Graffiti, knowing that Han Solo is in this movie, it just brings that performance in the, it pushes it forward in the movie. Like,
that and Suzanne,
it's like it's Han Solo, and he's so cool in American Graffiti as the mystery guy. That ends up racing. Who does he race? Is it Richard Dreyfuss? Is it that character, or is it
Ron Howard?
No, maybe it's the other guy. No, it's the other guy that Mackenzie Phillips is with.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
him.
Oh yeah, because I think Mackenzie Phillips ends up.
Paul Lamette. That's his name. That's the actor's name that played the guy that Harrison Ford raced.
But what's his character's name in there?
Okay, hold on. Plot cast. Paul Lamette. Yes, Paul Lamette as John Milner. So that's the guy that races Harrison Ford. Bob Falfa is the character that Harrison Ford plays. In
so close. Graffiti. I was
with the cowboy hat on all the time.
Yes, yeah. So, and that's why Lucas did not want him for Star Wars either.
Because he was too well known for American Graffiti?
Well, I don't know if it's too well known, but he just wanted all unknowns. They brought in Harrison Ford to basically just read with the other actors. They never had, I think they cast, or they wide net, and they had Nick Nolte and, Christopher Walken and a whole bunch of other people come in to read for Han Solo, but he really didn't want Harrison Ford.
So my answer would be Indiana Jones, Han Solo number 2, and then Bob Falfa number 3.
Bob Falfa. Mike?
Mike, how about you?
That's not a bad answer.
What, my favorite character?
Yeah.
It's got to go Han Solo.
Han? Han or Han?
Han.
Are you a Han or a Han kind of guy?
I'm a Han.
You're a Han. I like the Han.
Yeah, it's sometimes easier just to go Han, but that's a very American way to say it. So yeah.
Han. Well, that's like Leah and Leia. Nice. All right, I'm gonna go obscure. My favorite Harrison Ford movie of all time, 1986. This is such an offbeat. And again, probably it was right in the dawning of the VHS tapes where you could actually go to the video store and rent a movie. And my mother would always pick out the movie, and it was usually something stupid that you never heard of. And it turned out to be a documentary. It wasn't even a real movie, but you were invested because, you paid $4 or $5 for it or whatever. Allie Fox was the character's name. Can anybody give me the movie?
Mosquito Coast.
Nice. Mosquito Coast is my all-time favorite Harrison. You know why? Because so go back years later, Harrison Ford, there's a point where Harrison Ford just became Harrison Ford. So any kind of character he played, it was like, oh, there's Harrison Ford playing that character. Even when you get into Indiana Jones 4, when he's sitting after the nuke the fridge episode, scene, and he's in the interrogation room and he's just in a T-shirt, he's not Indiana Jones. It's Harrison Ford sitting there pretending he's Indiana Jones. There's a point where the guy kind of lost being an actor and he just became himself. I mean, there's a reason J.J. Abrams told him when they hired him for The Force Awakens, you can't do this stupid, gruff Harrison Ford crap. You're Han Solo, you have to kind of act. So Ali Fox is this crazy inventor. I mean, he was like off the wall. And he basically takes his entire family and they move to like the Congo to just live off the grid. And I just remember they built this ice machine for the natives. Like somehow like the natives didn't realize that they needed ice in their lives, but he builds this entire factory on the side of a river and they build these giant ice blocks and then they deliver them to the natives. But River Phoenix is in this, Martha Plimpton is in this, Helen Mirren plays his wife, so it's a pretty big name cast. I love this movie a lot because he plays completely against anything I think that he's played before or since.
Yes, and so. It started like a whole subgenre of movies of crazy fathers that take their families.
Yeah, to live in you got Running on Empty. You got a
Captain Fantastic, that Viggo Mortensen movie.
That's right. Yeah, and Jason Alexander actually is in this movie as well. I got to go back and look. He's credited as being the clerk. So I doubt that he was full on George mode at the time.
Okay, but and it did. It's all of River Phoenix's movies I think got much more scrutiny after he died.
After he died. Yeah.
So that I think I watched The Mosquito Coast for the first time after like a River Phoenix binge I took back in 93, 94. Yeah, and I loved it.
I do. I love this movie. I haven't seen it in quite a while. It's probably one of the few movies I love that I don't own, but maybe I need to revisit that.
So let's so Danielle, who is your favorite Harrison Ford character? Good choice.
I knew it. Oh my God. Choice. I knew it.
That's wonderful.
There is a point where you can kind of.
Dave came up with Hook last week and now this.
You know what? I get, so we talked about this offline. I'm not throwing out my Spielberg favorite movie yet because I need to think about it a little bit more. Okay. But I love the fact that David pulled out Hook. That was such a.
That was one of the iconic moments of TMI, I think.
There you go, iconic moments.
So I would like to, since I'm up, I was thinking of what we could watch along with, as a classic movie next week, along with our review of Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I was trying very hard to guess this, but so I came up.
Yeah, I wanted something that would thematically fit with Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I assume we're going to see a lot of little things hitting each other in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So if you know where I'm going with this, Jeff?
I don't. I threw out my two guesses before.
How about you, Mike? Little things hitting each other?
I got nothing.
We're going to go back to 1981, the same year Raiders of the Lost Ark was released. And let me just put it this way. The character is played by Ian Holm. He's got a very strong French accent, and he very much likes little things hitting each other. Time Bandits.
Oh, my God.
Nice one.
That is so, that's great. Perfect.
So next week's classic feature will be Time Bandits. If you guys want to listen, watch along with us and be prepared for next week's episode.
I'm going to have to reserve that right now.
Yeah. So I think that puts another one to bed. I think that's
even more Star Wars references, connections.
Well, we'll get into that next week.
Maybe.
Because our film is almost out, so I think it's
okay.
Sign off.
All right. That's it. We're done then, huh?
Good night, Daniel.
Until next time.
Oh, goodbye.
Good night, Daniel.
Bye.
Oh, goodbye.